Keita is a perverted young middle schooler who is trying to get into his preferred high school. His demented and also equally perverted sisters, who are in love with him, constantly seduce him and try to take away his boyhood and turn him into a real man. His parents, too, who are screwed in the head, encourage him to be intimate with his sisters and that he should end up marrying either of them one day. Our story begins with our pathetic main character, Keita, who screams and cries shamelessly behind his two sisters, Aiko and Riko, as a dog barks at him. His two sisters get the dog to leave, and they tell him that he'll have to stand up for himself since he is a guy. Little Keita asks them if they will leave him. They end by kissing him on both cheeks after saying they will be with him forever. Now, grown up, Keita wakes up in class mumbling the names of his sisters. Because of this, he is confronted by his three standard idiotic friends who whine about him being close to Aiko and Riko and how it's not fair that a shameless degenerate like him managed to get them to like him. They pester him about how he's tired and if he didn't get enough sleep because he was making babies all night. He fights them off and says he doesn't do such things because they are his sisters. He walks home alone and is greeted at the door by Aiko and Riko, who jump him with a kiss before bowing and treating him like harem king. Riko asks him what he wants to eat and offers herself as she flashes her melons at him. Crazy enough, Aiko is jealous and gingerly unbuttons her shirt, saying she wants to show Keita her goodies too. Unfortunately for her though, he isn't interested and walks away much to her dismay. Her sister teases her that Keita doesn't want to see small milkers like hers. In the bathroom, Keita has unhealthy thoughts about his sister, which make his sword alert, causing him to check himself. He concludes that he can't be having these thoughts about them. Meanwhile, Aiko and Riko are cooking in the kitchen while bickering amongst themselves. Aiko goes to Keita's bedroom and checks through his drawers. She grabs a pair of his shorts and sniffs it like a mentally ill pervert. Riko walks in and catches her, but instead of being disgusted, she brings out her own stolen shorts, which Keita just took off, and brags to Aiko. Aiko sniffs it as if it's ecstasy. As they are about to leave, one of the crazy sisters actually dips her hand in the trash and takes out a tissue that has most definitely been used for unholy things, and she sniffs it too. At dinner, Keita is surprised that his parents are absent, and he asks his sisters where they went. They explain to him that they traveled for a trip and wouldn't be back until the next day, which meant that for that night they would be alone with him. Keita is bothered by the news. In his bedroom after dinner, he holds a piece of paper that is an invitation for his parents at his school, but because they traveled without notice, they wouldn't be able to attend. He decides to just go to bed, but first realizes that his sisters might raid him while he sleeps. So he goes to lock the door like a military bunker before falling asleep. His eyes open, and he sees that his sisters are in his bed and doing the most hentai thing in this world. He wakes up abruptly thinking it's just a dream, but then sees them beside him. As they stir on the bed, one of them accidentally touches his prized instrument, which makes him bolt out of the house and head to school. Still inside his room, they go through his stuff and find the squeezed letter he had been reading. Immediately, both of them fabricate an evil plan. Jogging in school, Keita runs into a short, yellow-haired girl named Miyazaki, who is obviously smitten in an unhealthy way for him. She talks to him for a while about how it's impressive that he can work out when all of his mates are studying. She also teases him about wanting to become his manager. Before she leaves, she flashes him a view of her plank ass. The girls decide that they will represent Keita's parents at the parent-teacher conference, and they head to his school after leaving their class. As they arrive at Keita's school, they are noticed by a few guys, and before long, every other guy in the vicinity starts chasing them with horny faces. The girls run for their dear, perverted lives, doing their best to keep the distance. One of the baboon guys gets too close, and Riko kicks him, which sends him flying into the horizon. Because they are mentally deranged, one of the guys asks that he wants to be kicked away too. Some girls discuss in the lobby about how Keita's sister always makes the boys in their school crazy and how they hear rumors that he did freaky stuff with them. Just then, Kaito zooms towards them and runs into one of the girls standing by with spectacles. Like a foolish pervert, he ends up stuffing his face between her legs and takes a good sniff of paradise. He gets up quickly and runs towards the mob, leaving the girl to scream like a deranged chicken. Keith rushes to his sisters, who are now surrounded by all the thirsty boys in the school. His presence annoys the guys around, but he focuses on his sisters and tells them to go home because they always cause trouble whenever they come. They try to tell him that they came for a reason, but he shuts them down and presses on that they should leave his school. Dismayed, the girls turn back and head out. Walking back, Keita sees the crushed paper and immediately understands that they were actually here to help him. He rushes back to them after realizing he's wrong and tells them he is sorry. They hug him, and everyone grumbles with jealousy and watches them make up. They walk back home together and converse. At home, his crazy father is ecstatic about him not doing his sisters in public, and he encourages him, saying he can go all out since they're not blood-related. Her mother teases him too, and says that he'll probably get married to one of his sisters. His sisters, who are beside him, complete the madness by blushing at the thought of marrying their own brother. The dumb idiot Keats tries to study, but is distracted by tutor sister who is dressed as a corn hub teacher. She comes up to him and tells him to focus, but she presses her melons on his arms, which makes it almost impossible to think straight. A flashback shows how he ends up getting only 50 in his test, which was a terrible score but still expected from a dumb degenerate like him, which is why Akko offered in the first place to tutor him. Back in the present, she continues teasing him and offers to show him paradise. She continues teasing and almost removes all the fabric protecting her body from his perverted eyes. However, she stops and says they need to study and so must have to focus. Riko watches from the crack of the open door and gets jealous. At dinner, they bicker again and Riko wants to tutor too, but she is sidelined to making a night snack for him. Back in his room reading, he starts sleeping off. Instead of waking him up like a normal human being and finding reasonable ways to keep him awake, she decides the best course of action is for her to undress. In the exam hall, he only remembers flashbacks of her lemons and is unable to write anything reasonable. Going back home, they discuss his failure and tell him he needs to do better or they won't end up in the same college. At home, Aiko tries a new tactic and writes stuff over her body, saying that if he remembers her body, then he'll remember what is written on it. He approaches her and starts reading off her body, using his fingers to trace the line until he reaches the middle of her thigh, causing her to make sounds that have nothing to do with diligent study. The next morning, he assaults the same girl in glasses that he ran into in the lobby. She screams out in anguish, and he is quickly surrounded by a small crowd who are ready to stone him into another world. Over at a distance, the short yellow-haired girl flashes her bikini at him. He continues to study in their perverted method, and it continues making Riko jealous. Keita ends up passing the test, and the three dudes interrogate him. He confesses that he got help from his sister, and the guys start imagining that he did unthinkable things with her. A teacher in their school walks the halls of their classrooms and finds one of the sisters alone in the lab. At first, she thinks that the girl is studying alone, until she starts rubbing the cucumber in a very familiar way, causing the teacher to stumble back in shock. Keith has another dream where his sisters give him a first-class experience. He wakes up abruptly and sees Akko beside him. She says she'll give him a lesson and that any time he passes, she'll give him a kiss. He complains that it is a punishment and not a reward, which annoys her, but she presses on and says any question he misses will mean a reward. They agree, and she starts quizzing him. He gets the first few questions right, but misses one, and she tries to kiss him. He initially hesitates, but being a perverted degenerate, he can't resist for long. He and his sister lock lips and stuff quickly gets out of hand, or into his hands rather, as he cups her melons in his palm, causing her to moan out loud. They stop for a bit, and are about to continue when Riki steps in and stops them in their tracks before things go too far. She then offers him the snack she'd been making. He looks at her hand and sees bandages, realizing that she probably worked really hard to make it. He tries to collect the cup, but she doges and he falls like an amateur ballet dancer. She sits beside him on the bed instead, so she can feed him. He ends up passing and hugs Aiko. When they were still kids, Keita and his sisters once read a book about girls being made of sugar and spice. Back then, they had kissed him consecutively and asked him if they tasted sweet. Now, Keita wakes up in the present, startled, and realizes his sisters are beside him. They wake him up by kissing him interchangeably. He raises his voice and says that the kissing is enough, but instead of getting the point, they offer to give him a kiss as an apology. He then issues a no-kissing ban and pastes a sign on the wall. This causes his sisters to shout out in dismay. At night, Akko is cooking, and Riko is watching her through a magazine, jealous that she gets to cook for Keita. Akko goes to give him food and encourages him. She tries to kiss him, but he refuses, saying that there is a kissing ban. In order to retaliate, she says she will stop cooking for him. Riko overhears this and feels bad because she's missing out on all the hot action. Later, she overhears Keita and their father talking, and he mentions wanting sweets as he gets tired of regular food sometimes. It gives her an idea, and she rushes out to go and purchase ingredients for some sweets. She makes a horrible-looking meal that resembles the end product of a cow's visits to the latrine. She laments at how terrible she is at cooking, and hopes that the act of making it herself will be enough. However, as she tastes it, her eyes roll back, and the Grim Reaper comes to take her souls for eating such a terrible thing. At school, girls are giving the guys they like some sweets and sharing it about. The three idiot friends and Keita watch on, and they tease him about being spoiled by his sisters. He maintains that he has his own worries too. Miyazaki shows up offering a banana covered in chocolate that looks suspiciously like a certain instrument of reproduction. She licks it in a very strange way, which causes the guys to shriek with pure disbelief. Glasses Girl shows up and is shocked by the display. She tries to turn and run away, but somehow the banana is thrown at her before she can escape. Everything spills on her, which causes her to turn red and flee. Riko in her room is wondering how to get sweets for Keita, and she is frustrated by her lack of options. Even in class the next day, she is reading a magazine and sees an expensive sweet and starts talking to herself. The teacher in the classroom thinks Riko is referring to her teaching until she mentions a loan. Back at home, she goes to her dad's room to find him and take a loan. She enters and finds that he isn't around, but she sees a tape on his desk with a picture of an OnlyFans model looking sweet. The image gives her an idea and she gets to work. Keita is in his room trying to study, but can't focus on his books as he is remembering his sister's advances towards him. Rika shows up out of nowhere, whispering in his ear, and gives him a lipstick that is actually chocolate. She rubs it on her lips and offers to let him lick it off her lips, saying it's not a kiss, but an offer of sweets. He gives in, and she kisses him tenderly, like the Lannisters. Down in the kitchen, Akko notices something is wrong upstairs, because her cucumber is cut in half. Still at their tongue dancing, Riko offers him more sweets, so he asks her to sit on his lap while he applies it for her. They then proceed into a full make-out session, grabbing at each other like hungry wolves. Akko tries to get to Keita's rooms, but finds that obstacles obstruct her. There are pillows and tapes across the stairs. She tries to move up, but is blocked by oil spilling on her, causing her to slip and fall. Riko and Keita keep making out for a while until she gets tired of that position. She stands up and finds that she left a little gift on his thigh, which makes her a bit embarrassed. She leads him to the bed, and then scolds him when he tries to use lipstick again, asking him if he needs it. Instead, she cuddles up to him and then offers to let him taste her sweetest spot by lying down and spreading her legs to show him paradise. As he's about to start tasting, Akko comes in and smacks him on the head, causing him to fall like a leaf on Riko's chest. Aiko scolds both of them and asks what they've been up to until she sees the lipstick on the desk and realizes what has happened. She walks up to them enraged with burning fury and punches Riko on the head, causing a small bump. She smashes the lipstick and walks out. Keita is sad, saying that he wanted more. In reply, Riko gives him an extra lipstick and walks out of the room with a smile on her face. Alone, on the school rooftop in school, Keita remembers the image of paradise in his head, which makes him turn red. He takes a taste of the lipstick chocolate, but it sends the Grim Reaper to him because it's part of the horrible chocolate Riko had made. Rika looks for Keita everywhere in the house and wonders where he has gone. She even goes to check in between Akko's legs, which causes her to scream out and tell her that he's in the library. It turns out he's indeed in the library to study for his exam, so that he can get into the high school he wants. Back at home, the two sisters are alone. Akko is cooking, and Riko is watching her, and they remember how things used to be when they were kids. Back then, they would dress up in their uniform to show their parents, who thought they looked good in them, but when Keita was asked, he would roast them instead, causing them to feel bad and go back to change the outfit. Also in that time, they talk about how they used to play together on the side of the river, and how Keita was still fun and loving before he became cold toward them, just like their father had previously told them. In those days, in their old classroom, some friends had asked one of the sisters if she loved her brother, and she said yes, that she indeed loved Keita. A teacher overhears, and it sends her into shock as she imagines the worst things, like obsession with a brother or incest. The friends then keep telling the sisters to try other guys. The girls, as a matter of fact, actually get a lot of love letters every day from guys who want to date them, but they have been ignoring it because of their love for Keita. As they walk home, they discuss and wonder if they should give other guys a chance. After going back and forth on the issue, they decide to give it a try. They end up hating everyone they meet and complaining that guys are dirty, loud, and generally act like bullies. They meet up again outside and talk about how they want to see Keita. They go to his school and have to stand outside to avoid being seen by the others. They watch him try and run, but he initially falls down. They think he is a useless weakling until he gets up and overtakes everyone to win the race. They watch him like love-struck puppies and are impressed. They wonder if this is his own way of being a man. That's when they decide that they should act more like girls themselves. They conclude that they have no choice but to simply wait and watch him, even if they want to be with him. Meanwhile, Keita has flashbacks of how his life was dominated by thoughts of his sister. When he was running a race, he would imagine them at the finish line waiting for him. Whenever he was reading, he would see them in the form of books haunting him. He stops studying in frustration as some girls giggle at his outburst. As he's leaving for home, Miyazaki stops him and says he hasn't been participating in any club activities and urges him to participate more. She goes to him and grabs his arm while urging him. As she struggles with him, they somehow get into a controversial position, which causes Keita's cheeks to redden like a pervert. The girl with green hair and glasses walks by and sees them in that position as Miyazaki puckers up to kiss him. She runs away as she thinks that Keita is a horny monster who has left his sisters and now sets his sight on his underclassmen. Keita snubs Miyazaki and continues on his way. On his way home, he decides to go and pray in the shrine, which is, by the way, and runs into his sisters already praying there. As they kneel, unaware of his approach, they pray that they get to see him more often. He then interrupts them, and they tell him they've been coming to pray for him ever since he had been studying for his exams. Keita is touched by how much they care about him, and decides to pray too. He doesn't do any of the usual procedures, and doesn't even drop an offering, which his sisters point out. He says he doesn't really believe in God, and that he's just praying as a means of comfort for himself. They remember when he was still a kid, and he came to the shrine with his parents and sisters. Back then, he would use all his money as offerings to pray that he marries both of his sisters. His parents had teased him, and his sisters had kissed him in the shrine as encouragement for his wish. They walk away and check out the tablets with prayers, and see a lot of wishes to pass exams from different people, which was no surprise as they were in an examination period. However, they find out that a lot of people are praying for Akko and Riko to like them. They check more thoroughly and realize most of the tablets were just love requests. Keita then remembers that he himself was once really intent on marrying both of them, going as far as crying and wailing on the floor because in Japan it wasn't legal to marry two wives. He realizes that his putting off of his sisters must have started back then. His sisters are still discussing, and they mention having to hook up with another guy. Keita hears this and is not happy at the thought, so he goes back and prays, because he doesn't want his sisters to be with someone else. He drops a generous amount of offerings, and claps his hand like a proper sumo wrestler. His sisters watch him in confusion before he finishes, and tell them that they should head home. Akko and Riko are confused at his change in demeanor, but being the mindless simps that they are, they lock hands with him and follow him home. Thanks for joining us on another adventure, my fellow weebs. If you enjoyed this episode of Weeb Toons, make sure to smash that like button and leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. On another day of school, Keita and his delinquent friends stand in the hallway and watch the girls down below. They all have their different fantasies about seeing their favorite girls topless. Keita watches the fools, but then finds himself imagining his sisters trying to get all cozy with him. He shakes himself out of the pathetic dream, and is confronted by his friends on why he is such a killjoy. Blushing like a fool, he explains to them that he himself has preference, and then he proceeds to demonstrate that he likes large, soft melons. Doing this, he accidentally grabs the librarian's massive milk makers and gives them a proper squeeze. He doesn't realize immediately, but when he does, he is too late to save himself as she smacks him clean on the face. Later that day, when he gets home, his sisters see the hot red sore on his face, and assume correctly that their dear brother has been caught doing something indecent. They stare daggers at him in the sitting room, and their parents even ask what is going on. Akko and Riko become suspicious about whether Keita has been cheating. Meanwhile, the librarian is undressing, and she checks out her milk makers, which makes her remember how Keita had manhandled them mercilessly, causing her to vent out frustration. When Keita goes to study at the library, Miharu, who is the librarian, becomes too intimidated by Keita to go to the bathroom, believing he would attack her if she took her eyes off him. They stare at each other for a long time, and both of them have thoughts about what the other might be thinking. Before she can go to the bathroom, Keita tries to return a book she dropped, which looks like Miharu's student identification booklet, and chases after her, dragging her into various hiding spots to hide from Ako and Riko, who came to his school and were lurking about looking for him. They run headfirst into an empty storage closet and hunker inside one of the lockers. Through the slits of the door, they hear Ako and Riko prancing forward like hunting wolves. The twins enter the room and analyze every little corner. Inside the locker, the librarian tries her best to hold in her pee, but she is slowly losing her strength. She lets loose and releases right inside the locker, screaming as she does so. When she opens her eyes, she discovers it was miraculously only her imagination, and Keita beckons for her to step outside. They keep running away from Ako and Riko before eventually going outside. However, in their desperate attempt to hide, they end up getting locked in the gym storage room after a teacher sees the doors unlocked and goes to close it, not realizing that the pair are still inside. Stuck inside, they both frantically look for a way to get out until they discover a window. Doing the most stupid thing, Keita tells her to get on his shoulder so she can go out of the window. As she gets on, the power to hold in her pee fades away, and she opens her tank right on Keita's shoulder. As expected, she is beyond embarrassed, but Keita smoothly gets on his knees and uses his shirt to clean up the mess. They eventually manage to escape, and Keita promises to keep Miharu's incident a secret, though gets beaten up when he accidentally sees where Miharu had removed her panties from. The three strange siblings sit on a train en route to get a PC. Ako and Riko are excited because the purchase presents a fantastic opportunity to finally watch some uncensored videos. Keita is bummed by the plan though, as he would much rather get a console. They almost accidentally tell him that they'll be able to use the PC to watch some corn videos, but quickly cover up by saying it'll give them a larger access to the internet. After they purchase the PC, they discover that they are unable to view any type of adult material on it because the computer was set up to prevent different types of search words. The twins go back and forth trying to find a loophole but end up failing. Unable to view and get corn from the internet using a PC their father won at a raffle, Ako and Riko decide to buy erotic games in Akihabara, but in the process, Keita has to accompany them. So they devise a way to hide their real purpose for going to Akihabara. They walk around the place and find tons of distractions all around until they finally settle in a game store. Together, they finalize their plans, and Ako distracts Keita by taking him to a cosplay shop, while Riko investigates the adult section of a game shop. As Ako drags him alone while he grumbles, she does her best to make him not think about where Riko is. While changing, they run into Ako's teacher, Yuzuki Kiryu, who is a closet otaku. She is shocked as she opens the closet doors, thinking that some delinquents are being noisy. As she sees her student and her brother in a compromising situation, she is taken violently back and begins to panic at the fact that her student caught her in such a place. Meanwhile, Riko goes to purchase the game, and as she is browsing through the shelves, she sees one she likes. As she reaches to grab it, she encounters her teacher also trying to get the special edition game. Both individuals are appropriately shocked and stare down at each other with recognition. They confront each other about why they want such a game, but their teacher decides to act like an actual adult and says she's buying it for educational purposes. As they bicker, a random dude tries to take the game, but the feisty teacher punches him away instantly. She grabs the game and goes to the counter to pay for it. She is stopped by Riko before leaving and is confronted again about why she bought the game. Just then, Ako and Keita walk in on the scene, causing their honorable teacher to panic once more. Keita is told that she is their teacher, so he introduces himself properly as their stepbrother. This information drains the life out of their teacher, who remembers the position she saw Keita and Ako. She brings out the game to confirm if she saw right, and then drops it out of shock. Keita picks it up and realizes that that is what his sisters had been trying so hard to get. Yuzuki, their teacher, is worried about the relationship the siblings have and is reminded about Ako and Riko's crush on him. Yuzuki drags him off to talk to him, inadvertently taking him to a cosplay-themed love hotel. There, instead of behaving like a proper adult, she begins to fantasize about all manner of unholy things with Keita. They both dress up as characters, and while she talks to him about keeping his sisters at a normal distance, he stands up and tries to walk away, but she stops him, causing him to fall on her. At that exact moment, the winds walk in and catch them in that position. After later being found by Ako and Riko, the group are encountered by Yuzuki's younger sister, Mikazuki, who covers for Yuzuki by stating she was buying the game for her. She also adds that her sister was only trying to educate them because she was passionate about being a teacher. The trio calm down and consider this before letting things go and saying their goodbyes. Later at home, in return for bailing her out, Mikazuki gets Yuzuki to cosplay as Mai Shiranui for her that night. As her older sister complains, she explains to her that she has to comply because if she saved her from definite embarrassment, and if she wants to show her appreciation, she'll have to cooperate. One of Keita's friends, Toda, coaxes him into going to the pool with him and Mikazuki and inviting Akko and Riko. Keita, who does not have a will of his own, gives in and calls them. He suggests the plan to his sisters, who accept willingly even if they are cautious about Toda being invited. Meanwhile, their ever-present teacher overhears their plans. Suspicious of what they might be up to, Yuzuki decides to tail them, despite having a financial dilemma since admission to the pool is costly. At the pool, Akko and Riko show off their swimwear, which causes Atado to fall down in shock at the sight of their bodies. Mikazuki shows up and also tries to show off, even if she has basically tiny pimples on her chest. She leans down and tries to show Keita a better view of her small and humble packaging, but she is quickly rushed by the sisters and given a pad to cover herself. Meanwhile, their teacher arrives, and she forces herself to buy the entrance ticket and then is later chased away when she realizes she wouldn't be able to pay for rent that month. She decides that being in her normal outfit is fine. She steps out back to the pool area and scans the surroundings, quickly noting the squad. The two girls approach her, so she runs off to hide in the bathroom. While trying to hide from them in the bathroom, she is found by Akko and Riko, who, mistaking her for a peeping Tom, splash her with water directly between her spread legs. Incredibly, the water starts turning her on as she begs them to stop. They don't immediately listen, and it causes her to scream out loud. This attracts the attention of Todo and Keita, who rush in to check what is wrong. As they behold the sight of an older woman wet from head to toe, they are immediately smitten. They step outside and then demand an explanation from the teacher, who explains that she was only trying to keep them on the right path. The twins reaffirm that they love their brother and that it will never change. With her clothes soaked, Yuzuki borrows Keita's gym outfit. Keita is then worried because, according to him, he used it when he wanted to work up a sweat, so it probably stinks. They tell him it's okay, and Mikazuki escorts her sister back home. Later that night, Yuzuki becomes entranced by the smell of Keita's outfit and starts acting like a deranged baboon. She gets her fingers to work as she falls to the ground, saying how she can't take it anymore. While wearing it and having sexual fantasies about Keita, she rubs her thighs together and eventually falls asleep after several rounds of finger-stroking herself. She wakes up the next day to find that she had soaked his pants in the process. Meanwhile, oddly, Keita is having a nightmare about his teacher doing stuff with him. The summer festival comes, and it is the only day Keita is free from all the prep school work. This means that Akko and Riko will have to compete for a night at the festival with him. They both start acting really nice, which even surprises their parents, but the same parents realize that it's just the calm before the storm. Although they all go to the festival together, the twins start fighting over who will get to spend the most time with Keita. Meanwhile, the librarian is also present at the festival and overhears the siblings fighting. She makes up her mind that she will avoid them, as she remembers what happened last time when she peed on Keita's back. However, a few incidents involving paraders carry her towards the direction of the siblings, but it just enables Akko and Riko to indeed spend some time with Keita alone. First, Akko gets her turn and is left alone with Keita. She convinces him to forget about Riko and spend time with her. Keita slowly accepts, and they stroll around the festival while she gets some cotton candy. She offers some to Keita, but he refuses despite having apathetically lewd look on his face. She gives and reminds him of how he would complain and say he wanted to eat everything she ate back when they came to the festival as kids. Keita states that he's not a kid anymore, and then they can continue. They go to see some cute chicks, and one of the chicks gets into Akko's attire. She opens up her dress and urges Keita to get it out. Instead of doing the task he was asked to do, he instead squeezes her lemons until Riko shows up and glares at her, asking what she thinks she's doing. Just as they discuss, the paraders march towards them again, and this time Riko is left alone with Keita. She leads him to the forest, and then reminds him of how he used to be scared of the dark when they were kids. She cozies up to him and flashes him some of her sleek melons, while stylishly hypnotizing him with her yo-yo toy. He falls under her spell, and she tries to lead him deeper into the forest. Unfortunately for her, she also has to contend with Yuzuki, who is patrolling the fair and catches Riko and Keita in the forest. She spots their intention and begins her chase. She chases them all around the festival until Mikazuki, Meanwhile, the librarian is looking for where to relieve herself, but the line at the toilet is too long, so she concedes to go and relieve herself in the bushes. The naughty chick that Akko bought sticks with Keita as he sits on a bench near the edge of the forest clearing. It runs off towards the main canopy of trees and leads Keita to where the librarian is relieving herself. Just as she squats down to release, Keita walks in and witnesses a silver shower while the fireworks go off. Below her, the librarian's pee pools at her feet, and Keita is transfixed by the sight. When Keita comes back to where his sisters are located, he is beaten up and his face is completely swollen. As Keita tries to study, Akko and Riko compete with each other to be the most helpful. As they eat dinner, his father asks him how his exams are going, and he replies saying that it's been slow. His father suggests that he is tutored by his sister again, but as he imagines how the last time ended, where she wrote the answers on her body, he shakes himself and declines. His mother then suggests that he gets a charm he can use, which then gives the girls an idea. Back in his room, he tries to study but is distracted when Akko comes along and offers to make some tea for him. As she leaves, Riko comes back shortly after and interrupts him. She offers him a headband for luck. As he puts it on, he declares that he's already feeling motivated. While still alone in the room, Riko and Keita end up doing some foot play under the table, which initially starts off as an argument, but soon turns to something else. When Keita accidentally uses his foot to touch her in her most sensitive area, she moans out loud and confronts him, saying that he did it intentionally, but he denies it and tries to withdraw his foot. However, Riko grabs him and pulls him back, before using his foot to massage herself between her thighs. Keita struggles against her for a while, until he finally gives in and decides to enjoy his virgin life. Rika goes on ahead until she releases, which causes Keita to feel moisture on his toes. Just then, Akko walks in, and they stop abruptly. She wonders what is going on as both of them are sweating and blushing. Keita says it's because the room got hot and he is about to suggest leaving, but he quickly changes his mind. Riko quickly realizes that it's because he is probably hard. She then uses her foot to massage his crotch area. Soon after, she realizes what is happening and busts the two of them. On their way to school one day, they come across a large crowd and then see Toda at a shrine, and he shows off his many charms for good luck. The girls realize that they need to up their game and then decide to add another charm. While looking up good luck charms to help Keita with his studies, Akko and Riko learn of one that is made using pubic hairs. After much deliberation, the sisters pluck their own hairs to make the charm and give it to Keita. They both worry about how they each didn't have as much pubic hair, but they still decide to use the little strands they have. As they both decide to begin, Akko starts having extremely vivid imaginations about her and Keita while doing very suspicious activities. After approaching Keita and handing it to him, he is skeptical, but they push him to accept it. Keita tries to open the pouch, but they shut him down quickly and successfully convince him not to look inside. Keita takes it to school with him, though, and Akko and Riko are understandably embarrassed. Thanks for joining us on another adventure, my fellow weebs. If you enjoyed this episode of Weeb Toons, make sure to smash that like button and leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel.